Welcome to the final decade in our journey, the 2000s. This was the era of the game-changing mockumentary style, where shows like The Office redefined British comedy. But amidst the rise of cringe humour and realism, there was still plenty of ambitious and sometimes awkward sitcoms that didn't quite make it. We have a selection of 4 curious relics from this time, including a divisive Irish comedy, an early outing for a massive star, and an intentionally awful cult hit. We begin in the year 2000 with The Fits. This show attempted to mine comedy from an incredibly sensitive subject, the Irish border. Written by stand-up comedian Owen O'Neill, it centred on an Irish family who live in a house that literally straddles the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. To make matters even more surreal, all the children in the family were named after the American Kennedy family. The concept aimed for the absurd, broadly surreal humour that had made Father Ted a phenomenon, but some critics were not kind. The series was criticised for what some felt was stereotyping and dated humour. Writing in general about Irish comedy, John Walsh of the Irish Independent said, "The development of Indigenous TV comedy continues to be a long-winded Paddy Irishman joke, with not a punchline in sight. As it's set in a household straddling the north-south border, The Fits has a good chance of getting on the wicks of 2 disparate communities at the same time." He was concerned that a politician or some such would soon make a speech titled Irish Stereotype. The BBC ultimately only broadcast a single season of 6 episodes on BBC Two before it vanished. It's never been repeated, although there was an unofficial DVD release. So What Now was a sitcom that starred and was co-written by Lee Evans, and there were high hopes for it when it launched based on the quality of his previous work. Lee's character is a highly accident-prone, and disaster seems to strike him no matter what his intentions are. He is thrown out by his wife and turns to slobbish best mate Stuart to take him in. After Lee manages to burn down Stuart's home, they both rent rooms from lonely landlady Heather, a failed it girl whose wealth has run dry. However, So What Now wasn't really about the characters, and there wasn't really much to the show in the way of plots. Most episodes were simply designed to lead up to a set piece of outrageous physical comedy acted out by Evans. This inevitably led to critics drawing comparisons with the sitcom Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. It seems that Evans was always able to create a Frank Spencer-style chaos wherever he went, and whether he was stuck in a radiator or trying to move a sofa for no particular reason, it always got plenty of laughs in the studio. The audience at home were not always so easily pleased, and the show had mixed reviews. Principally, it seems due to the absence of any plots. It fails because no matter what the story is, the writing requires the characters to get into trouble. This means it feels like the show tries very hard to be wacky and zany, hence reducing the comedic impact. The show consisted of a single season with 8 episodes. The reason for not producing a second season is unclear. Some accounts suggest that Evans was dissatisfied with script interference from the BBC, leading him to turn down a second run. Other sources claim a new series was planned, but Evans wanted to concentrate on stand-up comedy instead. Conversely, some reports indicate the BBC simply cancelled So What Now after its first season. Regardless of the reason, only 1 season was ever broadcast. However, it was released on DVD. Next we have Hardware, which ran for 2 seasons between 2003 and 2004, distinguishing it as a slightly less forgotten show than some of the others on this list. Set in a miserable, run-down London hardware store, the show starred Martin Freeman, just as The Office was wrapping up, as Mike, an overqualified and sarcastic assistant. He worked for the store's owner, the perpetually miserable Rex, played by Ken Morley, a man who seemed to view life itself as a tedious transaction. The series is witty and fast-paced, with character interactions showcasing nice, sharp, observational humour about male friendships and workplace relationships. The surreal and dark elements led to comparisons with acclaimed shows like Black Books and The League of Gentlemen. However, in the wake of such experimental situation comedies as The Office, Spaced and I'm Alan Partridge, at the time of its original broadcast, Hardware did seem like a throwback to an earlier era of situation comedy. Reviews were varied from "not really funny but it's hard to stop watching" to "it was unpredictable, entertaining and very funny." A third season was in development, but Freeman quit the show to focus on more serious acting roles, so it never came to fruition. Finally, we have one of the ultimate cult hits of the decade, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. This show ran for just 6 episodes in 2004, and while it's developed a ferocious and enduring following, it's forgotten by those who saw it and moved on. It started in 2000 as an experimental theatre piece at the North London Hen and Chickens Theatre Pub. It was then developed into an hour-long play for the Edinburgh Fringe, where they initially performed to a near-empty room. Eventually word spread and they had a packed house, and returned the following year with another surreal show that won the Edinburgh Comedy Award. The premise is a show within a show. It's presented as a lost 1980s low-budget horror television series that was too controversial and brilliant to be aired at the time. The inner show is set in a hospital, Dark Place, where a group of heroic doctors fight dark forces. The comedy is derived from the fact that the inner show is intentionally terrible. We see bad editing covering up bad acting, visible wires, inserted B-roll footage and horribly dubbed lines. The true comedy comes from the cut-in commentary by the fictional creator Garth Marenghi, an egotistical hack writer who genuinely believes he created a masterpiece. But is Dark Place a sitcom? While the fictional show within a show is structured with episodic plots, characters and the fixed setting of a hospital, it's fundamentally a horror comedy mockumentary. The primary engine of the comedy is not the traditional sitcom humour or character relationships, but the layered parody. It parodies the technical flaws and cliches of 1980s low-budget TV horror dramas. The framing device, the talking heads with the fictional creators Garth Marenghi and Dean Lerner, is a mockumentary satirising the egos and self-delusion of media personalities. So while the format it spoofs is an episodic television series, the show's genius and its modern classification is firmly in the realm of highly conceptual meta-comedy mockumentary. And that brings us to the end of our little wander through the forgotten sitcoms of the 2000s, a decade where digital channels multiplied, laugh tracks echoed across increasingly empty studio floors, and half the nation was staring at a comedy you vaguely remember but can't quite place. For now, this wraps up this series of overlooked sitcoms across the decades, but if you're new here, don't worry, the channel is absolutely stuffed with other deep dives into British comedy, lost pilots, strange one-offs and shows that burned brightly for 6 episodes and vanished, and the occasional sitcom that probably shouldn't have been commissioned in the first place. So if you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane, or if you're just mildly alarmed by how many of these shows you'd forgotten existed, there's plenty more to explore. Have a rummage, pick an era, and I'll meet you there.